Hello guys, my name is Wale Farrell. I'm a tech entrepreneur and you're watching Tech Roundup, your weekly opinion, views and analysis of the top tech events happening around the world with a focus on Nigeria. This week in our analysis segment, Lagos State government's new regulation on ride-hailing take effect. With the analysis this week, I have Segun Adeniyi, a tech ecosystem builder and a fintech expert. As always, we'll round up with the number of the week around the world. Let's get started. So our first story. The Lagos State government has passed a new regulation for ride-hailing service operation, which imposes new fees on these service providers, and this was scheduled to come into effect from the 20th of August 2020. However, after much backlash and debate, the special advisor to the Lagos State government said changes will be made to the guidelines, including a 20% reduction on licensing fees and 20 naira flat fee on every ride as part of a road improvement fund. The updated regulation will now come into effect on August 27th. The timing of this is rather curious. Both Uber and Bolt drivers have been unable to function properly as a result of the restriction over the last few months caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And implementation of this new law adds nothing really positive for both the company and the commuters, and could potentially affect investment in Nigeria generally, and not just in tech, moving forward. Let's bring in Segun Adeniyi to discuss the potential implication of this development in the Nigerian market. Segun, good to have you on Tech Roundup. I know that I look forward to our conversation. I'm sure that your wealth of experience, we'll see it over the next few minutes in the stories that we're reviewing this week. Our first story, like you heard, anytime. The first story is really about Lagos State government and the idea that they're going to introduce a new license regime, so to speak, for the ride-hailing companies. They did it earlier this year for the bike-hailing companies, and you just begin to wonder what's really the play here, because when you look at it, the timing of this is a bit curious. Everybody is struggling to adjust to what's going on around the world. That's one. Two, I feel like as you see a vertical in tech growing, the government is jumping too quickly at it to start levying and getting income from it without necessarily allowing time for those verticals to really establish, for the players to establish themselves and to start realizing the full potential of what they are doing. How do you see this one? Lagos State taxing, wanting to take, fees from every ride, from guys that are, when you look at it from a company's perspective, look at it from the driver's perspective, things have not been the way they used to. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are from on this story.
Thank you, Wale. I hear that, and I think I should seize the opportunity to say I am not in support of what the government has done, timing, and how they have gone about it. I understand why they need to do something, and that is why I'm saying if I was in that situation, the way I would go about it would be slightly different. To your point about, the levying, as you know, or I believe as you will agree with me, levying is one way that the government will introduce, or the regulators could introduce barriers to entry so that you get more serious players that are within that ecosystem. And I think if this was done within a more balanced set of stakeholders where we have public and private sector representation, there are other ways that we could introduce barriers to entry so that you get more serious players to go into that space. The way that I understand this has been done today is even innovators, technology innovators who have no vehicles, but have just created an app which serves as a platform to bring people who have invested in vehicles together and offer that service, with various vehicle owners to customers to book their rides, are also impacted by this.
Yep.
And
there's
this was,
categorization. Yeah.
Sorry.
I said there's categorization. Yes, you're right.
Correct. And when you sit back and think about it, that whole attempt to introduce barriers to entry with heavy regulatory entry pricing also affects those guys. What is this likely to do to our innovators? What is this likely to do to our investors? I think for sure, Wale, I want to be, point blank on that. This will deter future investments in ride hailing. There's been too many occurrences in that space this year. January this year, we did the same thing on the motorcycle bans, which, if you recall, attracted a couple of hundreds of millions into this economy between 2017 and 2019.
Yeah.
January 2020, it was an abrupt ban. And if I recall clearly, they did not involve private sector in that discussion until a decision had been made public to the masses. The same thing has repeated itself this time. I'm not convinced, I'm not aware that private sector have been consulted, even though that industry is controlled by private sector entirely. That industry has been birthed in a bid to save the government from the failure to provide adequate public transportation, for the masses within Lagos State. I don't think those guys have received the deserved recognition for that, And
two final thoughts on this, and we move to
the
next story. To wrap up, I think for me, you're right. The barrier or the reaction of the larger investment world to this development could be very negative. This is space, and I'm talking about tech generally, that has attracted hundreds of millions of dollars in the last few years. It's difficult to model this in your investment thesis, either as the entrepreneur or the investor. Having this thrown into that thesis, it's something for future investment to consider when they are thinking of Nigeria. And your second point, it's about consulting private sector before implementing this. And there are examples that governments can follow. The CBN regulate banks and fintechs and all that. They always have stakeholders engagement before they do this. And I understand that NCC also does this as well in the same market. So there are blueprints that can be sort of studied before this is implemented. But we'll continue to follow this. Thanks for your opinion. And our number of the week is 1.8 billion. Uber lost $1.8 billion over the last 3 months, with its adjusted net revenue going down by 29% compared to Q2, same period in 2019. That's all our time we allow us to take this week. As always, we'll love to hear your comments and feedback, so please follow me on Twitter or connect with me at Wale Faron on LinkedIn. And please remember to subscribe to the Tech Roundup YouTube channel if you haven't done so yet. Also, please like us on Facebook and Instagram and be part of our vibrant tech community. Have a good week ahead and see you all again next week. Good night.